You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a more modern approach to selling, the application of virtual and hybrid selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I am delighted to be joined by Tom Mills. So Tom is a procurement protagonist. So Tom, welcome, and please tell me, what is a procurement protagonist? I can't even say it. Procurement protagonist.
Procurement protagonist. Hi, Fred. Really good to have this chat. Procurement protagonist is it's effectively someone who's passionate about procurement and wants to promote it and move it forward. And I think the word protagonist is the best way of describing the way I see the world of procurement, because there's all sorts of procurement professionals. There's lots of people who have the qualifications, but there's only a few people, I think, who are really trying to think about, right, what do we need to do to promote procurement and do things better? And I guess that's why I decided to call myself a procurement protagonist.
There's many salespeople are going to go say, Fred, this is one of the dumbest questions you've ever asked, but I think there's a better answer to this. Why do you think you need to promote procurement and things can be done better? I know. So to sell the salespeople, by the way, I think, well, Fred, it's dark side. We all know that. But no, tell me why you are passionate about this.
That's fundamental, isn't it? Because it's about the perception of procurement. I'm been into a number of businesses now where I've really felt like I've had to spend a lot of time and energy almost re-engaging the organization around what good procurement looks like. And then thinking about it from a sales point of view, I don't think procurement should be seen as, oh my goodness, we're getting procurement in on the call, we've got the bad cop coming in. But that's pretty much how a lot of the time procurement is perceived. So I think procurement can really help salespeople in terms of along the journey towards making sure that you've got a fair, really good negotiation, but the one that suits both parties. And actually, procurement are there to be the friends of the salespeople, really. And I bet you that will come as a surprise to a lot of people, because I think, oh my goodness, we're getting procurement involved. They're going to be blockers. Actually, procurement done well is the opposite to that. We actually make things work. We keep things agile. We'll get things to solution stage.
Yeah, procurement are the friends of salespeople. I hope folk aren't driving while they're listening to this. But no, actually, joking apart, I've had the pleasure of talking to a number of people in a similar position to you who think about similar stuff. We've had a chat before, and what really got us to connect was a LinkedIn post that you did actually, where you talked about 5 reasons procurement's the best in the world.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and went, well, but no, you just listed sales there. You've got the title wrong, Tom. Because actually they are very, very similar. The things that you do when you're doing it well, and we do when we're doing it well.
Yeah. I think there's a point there, though. One of the most important parts of being a procurement individual is that almost that salesman element, in terms of being able to promote internally with your teams, but also being able to collaborate. And lots of the skill set is very, very similar to what a salesperson needs as well. So
I think you're right. Promoting internally, collaboration. I mean, I'm all over that.
Yeah.
Barely a day ago, but it doesn't go by without me talking about collaborative selling and collaboration. But what I'd like to do is go through the points that you make, these 5 reasons, and let's just let you muse on those a little bit, and let me think about it from the sales point of view, and hopefully we can do our bit to protagonize. I don't know, is that a word?
Protagonize, yeah.
I don't know. Promote the profession. There we go.
If you come up with a better word than protagonist, let me know. I'm constantly changing headlines. So
no, I like protagonist. No, honestly, it works for me. So I'm looking at this, got it in front of me, and I mean, number 1 is you're saying there's never a dull moment. I mean, I'd say, well, in sales, absolutely, that's true. But from the procurement point of view, from your job point of view, just talk us through why you wrote that.
Oh, it's brilliant. And this is one of the things I absolutely love about procurement. And I'm not just talking about it's different every day. It's different during the day. So literally, you can be having a conversation with the HR team in the morning. You can be having a conversation about a massive software investment in the afternoon. You can be talking about a commodity that you need to buy the next day. And so the scope of the spend that you are purchasing, the variation means that certainly in indirect procurement, you've got such a breadth of things that you're looking at. So you're always learning, and you're just always learning about new stuff. And you could say, well, does that make you a jack of all trades, kind of master of none? Well, I'd say we're not there to be the kind of experts on all of the functional areas and all of the, we're there to partner the subject matter experts within the business. But what we are, or should be masters of, is how to procure effectively, and that's highly transferable. The other thing I'd say, and this might be similar to a salesperson, you meet so many people. I mean, you meet people at all levels of the organization, but also meeting new suppliers, meeting current suppliers, always talking. I'd say the biggest part of procurement role is just to be talking. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't some hard graft that needs to go on in the background, but the biggest and most important element is talking and understanding. And yeah, that for me is just what I love about procurement, and I can imagine it's similar for sales.
Well, yeah, it is. That's why lots of people want to get involved. It is that social, that relationship element. But the bit I want to sort of underline that you just said there, you're always learning.
Yeah.
So as a salesperson who's listening to this, hopefully their ears are pricking up going, well, okay, I will happily teach you. I'll happily share information. I'll happily help you understand what I think will be useful. And you want to partner with subject matter experts. Well, guess what? I'm a subject matter expert of the stuff I sell. Or even if I'm not, but I know it probably better than you guys do, I'll have super specialists available if that's the depth you need.
Yeah.
So huge opportunity for salespeople talking to you guys.
Yeah, and actually on that point, I know a lot of a procurement role is about the internal engagement, but the bits that I really get a buzz from is meeting with suppliers, meeting and understanding, to your point, the people who've really got that depth of expertise and knowledge that you kind of, sometimes I'm kind of really in awe of the kind of technical knowledge of the people that I'm speaking to. Now, that's not to say that I suddenly want to become as deeply knowledgeable about the things that they're selling, but it's just, I have a lot of admiration for the salespeople who are so into their product that they know so much about it. And that's the bit, again, that I get a buzz from. It's that learning part.
Yeah. And I guess what you're doing is checking that actually these guys do know their stuff. We're in safe hands with these guys. I mean, if they've got this level of knowledge, that's cool. This is good. Happy days. We can move on. Yeah. What's the most interesting thing that you've purchased then?
So I'd say the most interesting thing, I used to be purchasing or a direct buyer in the co-op, and actually one of the product areas I bought was wine, and actually from a point of view, fortified wine and spirits. So from a point of view of the most interesting product area, it had to be whiskey purchasing and the various distillery visits that you had to do to get your product knowledge. So yeah, a brilliant category to buy. I don't think that answers the question in terms of what was the oddest element. I might just come back to that.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I've bought so much. I'm thinking that I've never been asked that, so it will come to me.
We'll come back to it. Because I want to move on to number 2 anyway. Well, we've started to touch on this, and number 2 of your, why is it the best in the world, is that we know everyone.
Yeah,
we know everyone. Now, as many salespeople say, "Oh, well, no, that's our job." So again, talk me through that from the procurement side. We know everyone.
Yeah, so it comes back to what I was saying in terms of we have to internally work with every function. So in indirect purchasing, you're literally looking at all of the spend that the business incurs. So that means you need to be speaking to the facilities maintenance team, you need to be speaking to the IT team, you need to be speaking to the marketing team, but not just that, you need to know everyone at every level, because it's one thing to have that kind of senior stakeholder engagement, which makes a big difference in terms of promoting procurement. But really what we need to do is to understand the end user in terms of our requirements. So a lot of the time you'll be engaging with all elements of the business to understand what is it you want, what's your day-to-day, how can we from a procurement point of view help that make that better. And then the other thing I'd say is, back to my point on, we know suppliers. We don't just know the suppliers that the business currently works with, we know the suppliers that we might want to work with moving forward, and we might know suppliers from our previous lives. So you build a connection, you build a network way beyond the scope of the organization you work in. So reality is, we just have to be people orientated, and you have to build that network and you have to build that knowledge. But that means that we're quite powerful when it comes to, oh, I'm looking for a recommendation on a good system. We'll have a knowledge bank there, or we'll know people who will know, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and it's funny enough, it's not the first I've heard that you know, that is your job, is to have the options, and you like options make you feel comfortable, you feel safe. But equally, you'll have favorite options.
Yes.
But it's interesting when you say about knowing all people, different functions, different levels. This is what we train salespeople to do, is to map an organization they're trying to sell to also understand that, to know what they're all about and what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Basically, you're both doing the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, if people haven't made the connection here, the almost obvious thing to do is get you guys involved early, start comparing notes, or sell why we should be working together. This is what we're both going to be doing anyway. We can do this stuff quicker.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really interesting one for me. Really interesting. And so let's have a think about number 3, which is you have skills that can take you anywhere. Skills that can take you anywhere.
Yeah. So to be effective, really, the way I summarize it is, I'm quite interested in psychology and the way the brain works, and effectively you do have to be both logical and analytical, because you've got to understand the data, you've got to understand the commercials, and you've got to understand and have a good sort of evaluation methodology. But also you really have to be a creative thinker. So the way I was reading last night something about unconventional thinking, and actually you'll get many situations which appear to be problems where you have to kind of think outside the box. And I wish I hadn't said think outside the box now, because that's such a cliche. But
what box? What box?
But what you have to do is, a lot of the time you really have to think about how to unlock situations. So that could be unlocking a negotiation when you're at an impasse. It could be solving a problem that the business has regarding a current provider, and maybe a relationship that's not working. Or it could be the need to do things differently and to source an alternative solution for the business. So that creative thinking, allied to the analytical kind of logical thought process, means that you're effectively using all parts of the brain. And so I think that that's highly transferable. But then if you think about the skills of procurement, and again, this probably is not dissimilar to a salesperson, you've got to be a good negotiator, you need to influence, you need to communicate effectively, you need to be able to sell in procurement. You know, selling in procurement is probably, I'm almost going to say it's the number 1 most important skill. And so there really is, if you've nailed all of those things, those are core soft skills that are applicable across any profession. I guarantee, or I'd struggle to find a profession that doesn't need some of those core skills.
And
what do you think?
No, I agree. And again, I'm like writing these down and thinking, I've written down, so you unlock things, you solve problems, you negotiate relationships, Basically, you've written the outline for a sales training course.
Mm,
So
mm,
I've often talked about balancing IQ and EQ, which is
mm,
what you pretty said, using different
mm.
parts of the brain. Um, and interesting, one of the things that I'm really trying to get salespeople to do is to add value in the interactions they have with people, not necessarily because they're telling them how a product works or describing their service, but it's by asking them questions, which is bringing insight to the party, throwing a
Yeah,
different perspective on things, and so
yeah,
helping unlock some of those problems because of what they're doing. That they're
yeah,
bringing fresh thinking to the party, and that's
yeah,
their job. They will stimulate that. They'll help you
yeah,
do that.
yeah,
So again, we've got you trying to do that, and a salesperson who's trying to help you do that.
yeah,
Happy days.
yeah,
We're very much aligned again. Very much aligned.
yeah. And I think if I get a good relationship with a salesperson and a good trust and collaboration with a supplier, that has been when the organization has benefited the most, because then once you've got that trust, you can have those conversations together, and it's kind of putting those two skill sets together and putting the two heads together, and kind of working with your knowledge base to be able to come to a solution that suits all. I think the key though is establishing that trust, and that's why I think you alluded earlier, Fred, about having those conversations earlier and at the right point. It's quite limited when procurement are brought in as the kind of cavalry at the end of a discussion between the salesperson and the business, and procurement come in to look at the contract. That's really, really old school procurement. That's kind of the profession that we should be looking to move away from. And I'm not saying that we don't have a role in terms of understanding commercial contracts, but we're so much more valuable than that. And that's where I think salespeople and procurement could really work effectively.
Yeah, and yeah, we were joking about it earlier, but I think that is the brush you get tarred with. That it's,
Yeah,
oh, you're the guys who write the RFPs. You're the ones who are going to put a
yeah,
block on
yeah,
the sale. You're the ones who are going to be difficult. You're the ones who are going to like negotiate the price down.
yeah,
Well, if you involve us late, that's pretty much all we can do.
yeah,
That is a key piece of advice, that have the conversations early so that
yeah,
you can get into the position where you're helping you do the stuff, which is what, as good salespeople, we should be trying to do anyway. You're
yeah,
the guys who would be most receptive to it by the sounds of things.
yeah. And I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the sales people a lot of the time, because actually the biggest kind of challenge for any procurement function or individual working in procurement is to get the business to involve in the right time. And at the right time is at the very start of the engagement. That doesn't mean, by the way, that we have to kind of mark every conversation that happens with a supplier, but it's just at that initial discussion to say, look, we've currently got X, we're looking to buy Y, we're going to approach some vendors, how do you want to get involved? And actually, that way, if we can be involved in that discovery phase and at least understand what's going on, then we can have those more powerful conversations around, okay, well, actually, this is the value we're looking to unlock. Here's some providers that I've got that we could look at. And it's a far more collaborative approach than just bringing procurement in to look at the terms and conditions and to try and beat people up on price, which is, again, it's an old school myth that I'm trying to bust with procurement.
Yeah. Fault of the salesperson, that's quite strong, but I think there was a period where the advice to salespeople was you try to avoid procurement. You try to skirt around. You try. No, it really was. And as you say, well, kind of. And then you got the organisation who are not valuing you either. So basically, yeah, we're all kind of doing all this stuff, hoping that you won't notice what's going on. Now, of course, at some stage you are going to.
Yeah.
But more and more so, it's making sense that if the organisation aren't bringing you in, the salesperson should be going, right, how is this decision going to be made? When do we need to get procurement in? Or even, shall we get them involved now? Which, and then they're going to have to sell the concept of using procurement to the purchasing organisation. Go, no, don't want to do that. No, you do. That is typically what we will do a better job with us. And that's a bold sales approach, but a good one, I think.
That would be a really refreshing approach. And do you know what? The trust that would be built through just taking that simple step, Fred, would be incredible. I would really advocate that as a way of working, because what it shows is that there is nothing to hide. You aren't approaching the sales from a position of holding money back. You're putting everything on the table early. You want procurement to be involved, and you want to have a good, valuable discussion. That's been a bit eye-opening for me, just that statement, Fred, because I think that could be a really good way to change the way we work.
Yeah, I mean, more and more so. And again, it's demonstrating that expertise in that actually you, Mr. Customer's technical person or marketing person or whoever, functional person, don't really understand how this is going to happen. Now I do, because I know that they will get involved. Let's do it early.
Yeah.
I think it's a mature way, and I would encourage people more and more to do that.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. What's your experience of procurement, Fred?
Luckily, it's quite a good one, because I've been in this privileged position where I've interviewed guys like yourselves, and I understand it better now. Has it always been the case? Have I tried to dodge procurement in the past?
I reckon.
Well,
that's why I asked the question.
Oh, of course I have. Because I didn't understand it as well, and actually that was probably more the vogue or the way to do things at the time. But we're progressing, sales is progressing, the world is changing fast, and it's a clever way to do stuff now.
And I would say, I was going to say there's more and more people like me. That sounds egotistical. There's more.
Oh, that's the title of the podcast.
Don't put that as the headline. But there's more and more people who think this way about the way procurement should be, and I think that's accelerated over the last couple of years as a result of the pandemic, because you've almost kind of we're having to find different ways to engage, and actually procurement has almost become more prominent and known through the pandemic, both in the public eye, and obviously in the private sector. We've seen procurement has become quite a key function, but that's given us an ability to almost promote the way things should be done. So I think the world is changing, and it comes back to your question at the start in terms of why do I call myself procurement protagonist. I'm not looking to repeat 20-30 years of the way things have been done in the past, because if we all stayed still, then we'd never make progress, and it would be quite a dull world. I think procurement needs to evolve, and a way to evolve is actually to work closely with the salespeople and to build better partnerships from the start.
Agreed. Again, talk to me about partnerships, and there are words which just like set off little alarms in my head that I go, yes. That said, number 4, I'm still looking at this list of things you said. This is great. You're excellent people, but number 4, we make money. So you are still going to squeeze us on price, aren't you? You are still going to beat us up. You are still going to want a load of discount. That's what that says, isn't it?
No, not really. Not really.
Oh, all right.
So I am actually I plan to write a blog about this, because a number of people asked me on this when I put this post up, in terms of what do you mean? Absolutely. When procurement inevitably a lot of the time reports into the finance function, usually into the CFO, the head of procurement, there will be a pressure in terms of budget and what can we do to save money, but that's the very small, almost tip of the iceberg in terms of the value we add. And actually, so I won't go into too much detail on this discussion, because I want you to read my blog, Fred, but we actually are very much value orientated and looking at how we can drive the return on investment of our of what we buy, rather than looking at, we currently spend X, how do we chop it by 10%? And I think there's comes back to changing perceptions of procurement. The true value is how we help business generate revenue, and that's really through developing proactive strategic partnerships with the right suppliers to be able to drive the proposition of your product with the customers.
Yeah, well, basically what you just said there, it's more than a blog. There's about 4 books. Selling value, generate revenue, strategic partnership, they are huge areas in themselves. But again, people who understand that, work with people who understand that, Yeah, it's the way forward.
A few people, when I put that post up, they asked me a question in the comment, and I started writing a response, and then I thought, this response is getting too long now. And to your point, I thought, I don't want to ignore it because it's a really important subject. We had a chat a couple of weeks ago, Fred, where I said I want to write a book. So maybe you've given me another idea. But
it's definitely, it's probably a section over rather than a chapter.
Yeah.
So no, okay. Well, it's a huge area, and I also have an eye on the clock. Because I want to go back on to actually what you were saying pretty much anyway, which is we're a helpful bunch. That was point number 5. We're a helpful bunch. And I think most salespeople would try to tag themselves as being helpful. Tell me why procurement are a helpful bunch.
Yeah. So when I put that point, I was thinking of it in relation to the procurement network. So what I found, I've only been kind of LinkedIn active for maybe 12, 18 months, but through that I managed to connect with a lot of procurement individuals across the world, actually. And I've had kind of Zoom conversations like this. I've had kind of various comments on my posts, that type of thing. And I've also been involved in various forums and kind of get-togethers. And ultimately, if I'm in a situation where, I'm looking for a provider, or I'm looking for a way through a solution, if I speak to someone else who's in another organization, it may even be in a competing organization, as long as there's no kind of confidentiality being breached around what you're discussing, you will find procurement individuals just really want to help each other. And so from my point of view, and I presume it's probably similar in sales, there's a real kind of camaraderie there in terms of we just want to help each other to do things well. And I don't care whether you're 1,000 miles away in a different country or in a business which is completely different to the one that you work in. Everyone wants to help. But then I think to the point you might have been alluding to in terms of what do we mean by a helpful bunch as well. If you think about the way I've discussed the way procurement can really add value, we can be really helpful with the salespeople as well. If we get those partnerships right and we trust each other and we build that trust through effective engagement from the start, then ultimately we all want the right thing, or we all want the same thing. We want to move forward and be able to buy a product that works. So why wouldn't we be helpful?
Yeah. Again, I've got my salesperson ears on here, and it's, hang on a minute. So you will recommend the right people to colleagues, and not even colleagues, just people that you know. So someone who's doing a great job with you, not only are they kind of in there, they're top of the list, they could end up on top of someone else's list, because we know that recommendations, referrals are so powerful. But it all could be something without someone even knowing. They get the call going, I've been told I should call you.
Yeah. I would say not to put a negative spin on it, but the caveat there is that obviously where you've had a bad experience, and it's afraid to say there will be bad experiences, those stick. I'm not going to ever mention any names on a pod like this, but I will say there are some suppliers that I literally would not touch with a barge pole because my experience with them was so bad, and I would tell others not to. So just be clear, there is a network of procurement, and that is it's that whole reputation thing, really, isn't it?
That said, if something goes wrong and somebody can sort it well, that's something that almost puts more credit points in, doesn't it? Because things do go wrong, and we're all human, we accept that. And if someone can deal with it, it's like, okay, fair play. How you dealt with it, that's important.
And absolutely. And by the way, my statement isn't around when things go wrong. It's probably rare that I've had suppliers which I've lost complete trust with, because you're right, it's when things go wrong that you really get a true feel on how good that supplier is. So
can you tell us a horror story without any names and without sort of getting yourself in too much trouble? In other words, a kind of don't do this at home type guy's story.
I think I've written an article once on LinkedIn about when things have gone wrong, and kind of how that has manifested in terms of really a kind of negative experience for both the customer and the salesperson. But there is one example several years ago of a situation whereby a supplier was so intransigent on the kind of negotiation, and so open, so extreme in terms of the kind of costs, that it almost prevented any collaborative dialogue moving forward, and actually led to a situation whereby it took it beyond a stage whereby there was any ability to reconcile, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that stuck with me, is to build trust from the start, you've got to be realistic, and you've got to be prepared to have open-minded conversations.
Be realistic and have open-minded conversations. Yeah. Okay, I won't push you any further on that. I could see you were being quite careful, and that makes sense.
What I would just say, just on that point, because I wanted to be a bit more clear on that, but that came down to style, really. That's about a style of dialogue, and I think it's that typical situation of, and maybe it comes back to your point on, we've been told to avoid speaking to procurement, and maybe they were so sort of het up with, oh, I'm speaking to procurement, therefore I've got to put on my bad cop kind of face. That actually it almost became counterproductive, because rather than building that relationship, it completely broke down. So I think one interesting point there is that was sort of 10-15 years ago that experience happened with me, and I'm thinking it's rare that I see that nowadays, so maybe the world has changed.
Hopefully there's better sellers around, and the guys who are behaving like that aren't around anymore. Exactly. But actually, another one then, I haven't planned on asking this, but it's just occurred to me. If a key supplier came to you and said, right, we're training our salespeople, we're putting them through a program, we want them to be more collaborative, and we would like to invite you to come along on it.
As in me?
You, Tom Mills, do you want to come on our sales training with the people who are going to be selling to you? Would you like to sit in on it?
I'd love to, yeah. It would be amazing. I think there's so much we can learn from each other. I mean, I've been on negotiation courses where I know both sides of the fence get the same course, because ultimately, to your point earlier on, Fred, we're all effectively doing the same thing. But personally, I would love to have discussions with salespeople around what good looks like, how we can help, how we can work together more effectively.
Yeah. No, well, I'm literally thinking same time, same place, same people in the room, if we're ever allowed to do that. Yeah. These are who are going to be selling to you. This is what they're going to be learning. You can hear it firsthand. You can hear how they're absorbing it, because that's how we want to operate, and we've got nothing to hide. Yeah.
And why would we not do that? It apart from anything, it's going to make for better conversations. It's going to make for more agile decision making, and it's just going to make for an easier journey towards that collaboration. So yeah,
I think so. I mean, you know why salespeople are doing what they're doing, because if they're doing something that isn't conducive to that, well, that's a little bit underhand. And talk about building a relationship. They're saying straight away, this is what we're going to be doing. Come along, if you haven't got time, fine, but the invite was there. You think, wow, okay,
totally.
Okay, good. Just one that occurred to me. It's a little bit of a soapbox I have sometimes, but no, brilliant. Look, Tom, you've shared so much cool stuff here. You've also teed it up so everyone's going to go onto your LinkedIn profile and read your read your blog when you put that together, which suggest you start now, sir, because that's going to be a long one.
I might have to break it into sections.
Part 1, part 2, part 3. You can serialize it. It's going to be like a whole series of senders.
Or maybe it is a book.
Lots of blogs make a book. But no, brilliant. Look, I really appreciate you coming on and taking time to share. And I'm going to use my protagonize word again, because I'll probably find out after this that it doesn't even exist, and I'm but no, it's really interesting. Any parting comments you'd like to make before you give us contact details, but any about, you know, how salespeople can work better with you, or, you know, what's going to help you further in promoting the good of procurement?
I think engage with us early, change your mindset around procurement, and be open-minded. Those are my three kind of sound bites to take forward. And I think with that, we've got a real opportunity to do things better, and actually make sales and the procurement interaction a bit more fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Engage early. Change your mindset about who procurement are and what they do, what they're trying to do, why they're there, and be open-minded about how you have your conversations, the information you share, and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, and yeah, let's make it a bit more fun.
Yeah.
So life's too short sometimes. Well,
Exactly.
always.
Exactly.
How do people get in touch with you? How can they reach out and hear more of the stuff you got to say?
Yeah, so really, I'm most contactable on LinkedIn. So I'm really happy for people to follow me on LinkedIn. Tom Mills, Procurement Protagonist. That's my headline. Yeah, really, really happy for people to follow me there, connect with me there, and contact me on that initially. And yeah, I'm very open to having discussions with anyone who wants to understand a bit more about procurement, but also from a salesperson who wants to understand a bit more about how to interact with procurement. I'm very open to those types of discussions.
Brilliant. Good. And so please, if you're going to contact Tom as a result of this, just mention it in the message, because you will be sending a message. No, Tom, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's been fascinating. I've written loads down, as you can see, and it's set my mind just going on a couple of little things that I can do too. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.